This is not a homeless shelter, and I don't care what kind of forgery you printed out from the internet. You are not stepping foot in my lobby looking like that. The sound of the thick, premium cardstock paper being ripped in half was sharper than the howling wind outside, a violent tearing noise that silenced the gentle crackle of the grand fireplace in the lobby of the Summit Lodge. Gavin, the general manager, dropped the shredded pieces of the reservation confirmation onto the wet floor tiles like they were contaminated trash, his lip curling in a sneer of absolute disgust as he looked down at the woman standing before him. She was covered in snow. Her heavy parka was nondescript and bulky, and her young daughter was clinging to her leg, shivering violently from the blizzard that was currently burying the mountain in white fury. Welcome back to Her Secrets, Her Stories. I'm your host, and today we are witnessing a chilling tale of arrogance that proves the coldest things on Earth are you found on a mountain peak, but in the human heart. If you believe that respect should be given to everyone, regardless of what they wear, do me a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button and like this video right now to help us spread this message. And while you're at it, tell me in the comments what city are you watching from, and have you ever been judged by your appearance? Let's get the conversation started. Elena, the woman standing in a puddle of melting snow, didn't scream, and she didn't cry. Even though the biting wind from the automatic doors was freezing the tears on her daughter's cheeks, she simply looked at the pieces of paper on the floor. The confirmation for the royal penthouse sweetened, then looked up at Gavin, a man whose bespoke suit and polished shoes screamed money, but whose eyes screamed emptiness. To understand the gravity of this moment, you have to understand the storm. This wasn't just a snowfall. It was a code red blizzard, the kind that shuts down highways and grounds helicopters. Elena and her family, her husband Marcus, and their daughter Lily had been caught in it while driving up the mountain pass. Their SUV, a reliable but older model they used for rugged trips, had struggled up the final incline, and they had walked the last 100 yards through waist-deep drifts when the engine overheated. They were freezing. Their lips were blue. They weren't looking for luxury in that moment. They were looking for survival. But the Summit Lodge was a place where survival was assumed, and status was the only currency that mattered. Gavin, who had managed this resort for 5 years with an iron fist and a snobbish nose, saw 3 black people in generic, unbranded winter gear stumbling through his pristine glass doors. And he didn't see guests. He saw a stain on his perfect aesthetic. "I asked you to leave," Gavin said, his voice dripping with condescension, loud enough for the wealthy guests sipping hot cocoa by the fire to hear. "The staff quarters are 5 miles down the road. They have a hostel. It's more ... your speed. Maybe they have soup." Elena took a deep breath, the cold air burning her lungs. She reached down and picked up one half of the torn paper. "Sir," she said, her voice trembling not from fear, but from the effort to control her rage. "We have a reservation. One booked the penthouse 3 months ago. My name is Elena Sterling. Please, my daughter is freezing. We just need our room keys." Gavin laughed, a cruel, barking sound. "The penthouse, do you know how much the penthouse costs per night? It's $5,000. I doubt you have 5,000 cents between the 3 of you. I don't know where you found that reservation number. Maybe you stole it from a receipt in the trash. But I am not letting grifters into my hotel." Marcus, Elena's husband, stepped forward, his fists clenched at his sides. He was a large man, protective and strong, but he knew the game. He knew that if he raised his voice, if he showed even an ounce of aggression, security would be called, and the narrative would flip instantly. "Look," Marcus said, his voice deep and calm. "Check the system. Just type in the name. Sterling. That's all we're asking. If it's not there, we leave. But check." Gavin didn't even glance at the computer. He crossed his arms over his chest. "I don't need to check. I know my clientele. And you represent everything we try to keep out of the summit. You are dripping water on my Italian marble. You are disturbing the ambience. Now, get out before I have you forcibly removed for trespassing." Elena looked around the lobby. She saw the eyes of the other guest people wrapped in Gucci blankets, drinking champagne. Some looked pitying, but most looked annoyed, as if Elena's distress was interrupting their vacation. No one stepped in. No one offered a towel to the shivering child. The isolation was colder than the snow. "You are making a mistake," Elena said, her voice drop into a whisper that carried the weight of a judge's gavel. A very big mistake. The storm is dangerous. You are legally required to provide shelter in an emergency. But beyond that, I have paid for this room. If you kick us out, you are liable for whatever happens to us. Gavin leaned in close, invading her personal space, smelling of expensive cologne and malice. I am liable for the safety of my actual guests, he hissed. Not trespassers. Security. He snapped his fingers. 2 guards, wearing the resort's signature gray uniforms, approached from the shadows. They looked hesitant. They saw the child. They saw the storm, but they looked at Gavin, and they feared for their jobs. Escort them off the property, Gavin commanded, waving his hand toward the glass doors where the whiteout conditions were raging. If they resist, call the sheriff. The guards moved in. One of them reached for Marcus's arm. Sir, please, the guard muttered. Don't make us do this. Don't touch him. Elena's voice rang out, sharp and sudden, stopping the guard in his tracks. She reached up and pulled off her thick, woolly hat, shaking out her hair. She removed the fogged-up protective goggles that had obscured half her face. She unzipped the bulky, generic parka she was wearing to reveal the clothes underneath. Not that it should have mattered, but the transformation was symbolic. She wasn't shedding her clothes. She was shedding her disguise. She stood straighter, her posture shifting from that of a weary traveler to that of a titan. She looked at the front desk clerk, a young woman named Sarah who was cowering behind the monitor, terrified of Gavin. Sarah, Elena said, reading the girl's name tag from 10 feet away. Access, the mainframe. Oberide, code Alpha Zaroninius. Password, integrity. The room went silent. Gavin blinked, confused. What are you babbling about? Ispat. Sarah, don't touch that computer. But Sarah was already typing. Her hands were shaking, but she knew that code. Every employee knew that code. It was the emergency administrative override, a legend whispered about in training manuals. The code that belonged to the ownership group. I said, stop. Gavin lunged toward the desk, but Marcus stepped in his path. Not aggressively, but like a wall of granite. Let her type, Marcus said. Sarah, hit enter. The large screens behind the reception desk, which usually displayed scenic videos of the mountains, suddenly flashed black. Then, a logo appeared, a golden mountain peak with the letter S intertwined. And below it, a profile loaded. It was a photo of the woman standing in the lobby. But in the photo, she was wearing a business suit. The text under the photo read Elena Sterling, founder and CEO. Sterling Hospitality Group. Owner, the Summit Lodge. The color drained from Gavin's face so fast it looked like his soul had left his body. He staggered back, gripping the edge of the concierge desk for support. No, he whispered. That's not possible. Ms. Sterling she's in New York. She never visits the sites personally. Elena took a step forward, the water dripping from her boots now seeming like holy water on the marble floor. I wanted to see how my guests were treated when they did unlook like walking bank accounts, Elena said, her voice echoing in the silent lobby. I wanted to see if the culture of warmth I wrote into the mission statement was real. And what did I find? She gestured to the shredded paper on the floor. I found a man who would send a 6-year-old child out into a blizzard because her coat was inexpensive enough. Gavin tried to speak, but only a squeak came out. He looked at the guests, who were now standing up, phones out, recording the moment. He looked at the security guards, who had instinctively stepped away from Marcus and were now standing at attention, facing Elena. Miss Sterling, Gavin stammered, sweat breaking out on his forehead despite the cold draft. I didn't recognize you. The storm, ... The gear. We have strict protocols about security. I was trying to protect the resort. To protect your asset. Protect my asset, Elena interrupted, her eyes blazing with a fire that terrified him more than the storm. My asset is not the building, Gavin. It is the reputation. It is the people, and you just tried to kill both. She walked over to the fireplace, picked up a warm, thick towel from the warmer, and wrapped it around her daughter, Lily. Then she turned back to Gavin. You said the staff quarters are 5 miles down the road? That they have a hostel? Gavin nodded, trembling. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Good, Elena said. Because you're going to need a place to stay tonight. You're fired. Effective. Immediately. You have 5 minutes to clear your office and vacate the premises. But ... But the storm. Gavin cried out, pointing at the swirling white abyss outside the windows, the same abyss he had tried to push Elena into moments ago. It's a code red. You can't throw me out in this. It's dangerous. I could freeze. Elena looked at him with an expression of stone. Strange, she said. 5 minutes ago, you said it was perfectly fine for a family with a child to walk out there. Surely a grown man in a bespoke suit can handle it. Or is the weather only dangerous for people who don't earn 6 figures? The silence that followed was heavy with judgment. The guests in the lobby, the same ones who had ignored Elena, were now murmuring in agreement, turning on Gavin as quickly as the wind changes direction. Please, Gavin begged, his dignity gone. I have nowhere to go. My car is snowed in. Elena paused. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't him. I am not a monster, Gavi, she said softly. I won't send you to die. You can stay in the lobby until the storm passes, but you will not stay as a manager. You will not stay as a guest. You will sit on that bench by the door, and you will think about every person you have turned away in the last 5 years. And when the road's clear, you will leave. She turned to Sarah at the desk. Sarah, please give me the master key to the penthouse, and inform the kitchen that I want hot soup and cocoa sent up for my family immediately. Oh, and Sarah. Yes, Miss Sterling, the girl squeaked. You handled the check-in perfectly. You're the new acting general manager until I find a replacement. Your first job is to ensure Gavin doesn't touch anything on his way out. Sarah's jaw dropped. Then she beamed. Yes, ma'am. The security guards escorted a weeping Gavin to the bench near the drafty doors, the coldest spot in the room. He sat there, shivering in his expensive suit, watching as Elena, Marcus, and Lily were ushered toward the golden elevators. The guests applauded. It was a surreal moment. The same people who would have let her freeze were now cheering for her power. Elena acknowledged them with a curt nod, but she didn't smile at them. She knew their respect was conditional. As the elevator doors closed, shutting out the lobby, Marcus squeezed Elena's hand. You went a little easy on him, he murmured, kissing her forehead. I let him keep his life, Elena replied, looking down at her daughter who was finally stopping her shivering. But I took his pride. That will hurt him longer than the cold. The rest of the weekend, the staff treated everyone, regardless of their attire, like royalty. The fear of God, or rather, the fear of Elena Sterling, had been instilled in every employee. Gavin was seen walking down the mountain road 2 days later, dragging his suitcase through the slush. A man who had reached the summit and fallen off because he forgot that the mountain doesn't care how much your suit costs. Elena's story spread through the valley like an avalanche. It became a legend in the hospitality industry. The CEO who came in from the cold. The lesson was simple, yet it seems to be the hardest one for people to learn. Arrogance is a warm coat that turns into a straitjacket. The moment the weather changes, you never know who you are talking to. You never know who holds the keys. So, treat the janitor with the same respect as the CEO. Because one day, the janitor might be the one deciding if you get to come inside out of the storm. Thank you for listening to this story of winter justice. If you felt the chill of the lobby and the warmth of the victory, please share this video. And remember to subscribe to her secrets, her stories. I'm your narrator, reminding you that true class isn't about exclusive access. It's about making sure the door is open for everyone. Stay warm, stay kind, and I'll see you in the next story.